Today we will be starting with the course. So the first session of this course is introducing the photogrammetric concepts. So now, before going into what is photogrammetry, what are the basic concepts of photogrammetry, let us first distinguish between what is a topographic map and what is an aerial photographs. As you already know, that map shows an area as seen vertically from above. Different symbols are used and to represent various objects on a map. The maps can be of different types. Maps can be topographic map. A map can also be thematic map. Topographic map means all the features of the ground based on the scale are represented on the map. Whereas thematic maps are the ones in which theme-wise information is available. Now, what do we mean by theme-wise information? Suppose someone is saying a map of soil quality. So, only the information about soil quality will be available on that particular map. So, this is what how we differentiate between topographic map and thematic map. Now, the second thing is an aerial photograph. What is an aerial photograph? It is a photograph taken by an aircraft which shows various objects on the ground. Now, these aerial photographs can be further subdivided into various types, such as vertical photographs, oblique photographs, and so on. But when we look at the topographic map and aerial photograph, we will see that there are certain basic differences between a topographic map and an aerial photograph. Both of them, both these things, both the map as well as photograph, they represent the features of the ground. But there are certain basic differences. The first difference is that in a topographic map, all the features are represented in an orthogonal projection. Now, what do we mean by orthogonal projection? Orthogonal projection means all the features of the ground, they are projected at 90-degree from the ground. So there is no distortion in a map. Whereas in case of aerial photographs, the projection is central projection. All the rays of the ground, they go and meet at a point, at a specific point. This is the lens, and from there they again diverge and forms the negative at the focal plane. So this makes the projection as central. All the rays going and meeting at one single point, and from there where they are diverging. Whereas in case of map, all the rays are or projected orthogonal. So I will be showing a diagram also so that it becomes clear to you. The next important difference between map and photograph is that a map has a uniform scale. So the scale of the map is printed on the map. It is written 1:50,000, 1:25,000 or so. That means, what does this mean? That means one measurement on the map is equivalent to 50,000 measurement on the ground. So 1 centimeter of map is equivalent to 50,000 centimeter of the ground. 1 inch of the map is equivalent to 50,000 inches of the ground, and so on. Now, whereas this is constant throughout the map, whereas in case of aerial photographs, the scale is not constant. Scale varies from point to point. How it varies, that also we will be discussing later. In a topographic map, there is no distortion, as I have already told you. There is no distortion because of the relief of the terrain. There is no tilt, so no distortion. Whereas in case of aerial photographs, we have distortion because of relief or because of the height of the features. All the objects are represented in a particular scale on a map, whereas in the aerial photograph, only the features that are visible, they are only seen. It is an abstract representation in the topographic map. You are representing, suppose there is a temple, so we are making only a dot for that, only a position for that. So it is a abstract representation in a topographic map, whereas in case of aerial photograph, it is a real representation. There is no distortion in case of topographic map, whereas there are many distortion in case of aerial photographs. So this is how we can differentiate between topographic map and aerial photographs. Now, as we have seen that aerial photograph or satellite image directly cannot be taken as a photo map because the scale is not uniform, there are certain distortions. So this makes us to do certain processing so that my photograph can be used as a photo map. Okay, and this entire processing is photogrammetry. Now, what is photogrammetry? Photogrammetry means the science of quantitative measurement from the photographs. Photogram and metron. Photogrammetry term is made up of these three different terms. Now, how we are able to do the measurements from the photograph? It is not two-dimensional measurement. Precise three-dimensional measurements from the photographs, deriving precise three-dimensional measurement is called as photogrammetry. Now, how are we able to get three-dimensional measurement from two-dimensional photograph? Photograph is a two-dimensional thing. We all know. How we are able to see or get the third dimension? By looking at the same area from a different view direction. Now, I will give you a very simple example. Now, we are able to distinguish which object is closer to us, which object is far away from us. How we are able to do? Because we have two eyes, and these two eyes, as you can see here in the image, okay, these two eyes are focusing on an object. Suppose this is the tree on which it is focusing. These optical axis of the eye, they are making an angle which we call as parallactic angle. Okay. Now, suppose there is another object which is far off from our this place. So our eyes, when they are focused here, the optical axis makes another angle here. And this difference between these two parallactic angles gives us an impression about how what would be the depth of tree and what would be the depth of the building. Okay, so this is how we are able to get the depth perception. The same concept is used in photogrammetry also. Now replace these two eyes with two cameras. So from one camera, capture the photograph of one of the object. From the other camera, capture the photograph of the same object. Okay, then by doing certain processing, we can create the three-dimensional object here or three-dimensional model of that particular area. So this entire processing is called as photogrammetry. As you can see here, these two objects, this red apple and yellow pear, they are at different distances from the eye. So the images are formed at different places, and we are able to get the respective depth of apple and pear from the eye. Okay, so this is what is photogrammetry, creating precise three-dimensional information or making precise three-dimensional measurements. Now, these measurements are very, very precise. Now, once you have a three-dimensional model here, you can do measurement on that model. These since the photogrammetric equations, they are in use since last 150 years. These equations are well, they are now foolproof, and they give a very good accuracy. Also, within photogrammetry, at every stage there is a statistical self-checking. So at every stage, unless you achieve certain accuracy, you are not allowed to go to the next stage. So this keeps the accuracy of photogrammetric measurement very, very high. So this is what is photogrammetry. Photogrammetry Theoretically, it can be metric photogrammetry and interpretative photogrammetry. Anything that we do from photographs comes under photogrammetry. So, when we do the measurements from photographs, it is called as metric photogrammetry. When we do simple interpretation from the photographs, it is called as interpretative photogrammetry. So, metric photogrammetry is making precise measurements from the photographs to determine the relative location of the points. We can find out distances, angles, area, volume, elevation, size, shape of the objects. So many things we can do. And this is how we do the metric photogrammetry using stereo photogrammetric concept. So what I have told you just now about photogrammetry, that is metric photogrammetry. Photogrammetry can also be interpretative photogrammetry. Suppose you have been given a photograph and you identify that this is dry dock and ship, this is a railway track, this is a water body. So and this is a harbor. So this, you are using the photographs, you are doing the interpretation work. So that comes under interpretative photogrammetry. Interpretative photogrammetry can be done using aerial photographs, or it can be done using remote sensing images also. For our, this entire thing comes under photogrammetry, but for our sake of convenience, only metric photogrammetry is considered as actual photogrammetry. Okay, so we will be discussing only about metric photogrammetry in the entire course. Now, based on where we have put our sensor to capture the photographs, there can be different types of photogrammetry. You can place the camera on the ground. Ground means very near to the ground. You can hold the camera in your hand. So that becomes as terrestrial photogrammetry. You can mount the camera in UAV or in the drone. That is the latest technique these days. So that becomes drone based or UAV based photogrammetry. So both these ground based and UAV based photogrammetry, in these two, the object to camera distance is very less. So they are also called as close range photogrammetry. If the camera is mounted in the aircraft, we call it as aerial photogrammetry. We can also use the satellite images for performing photogrammetric processing. So such type of photogrammetry in which the input images are satellite images, we call it as satellite photogrammetry. Both aerial and satellite photogrammetry are far range photogrammetry. Based on the processing technique, again the photogrammetry is of three types: analog, analytical and digital. Nowadays, analog and analytical systems are not available. They are outdated. The entire photogrammetry is now digital in nature. Digital photogrammetry is applied to digital images. Either aerial photographs are in digital format or the satellite images are in digital format. Digital photogrammetry is also called as soft copy photogrammetry. The entire inputs that we give are in digital format. The outputs that we receive is also in digital format. So these are the differences between analog, analytical and digital photogrammetry. These slides will be uploaded on in the study material. You can look at these comparisons. Now coming to the basic concept of photogrammetry. We are talking only about metric photogrammetry. Now, as we have already discussed, that the primary objective of our technique is to derive precise coordinates of a point, precise three-dimensional coordinates of a point. Now, how it is done? This is done by viewing the area from two different angles, thereby recreating the same condition as it existed at the time of photography. So, please note it down. This is very important. Recreating the same condition as it existed at the time of photography. We will be discussing this more in tomorrow's lecture. Now, what does this mean? This means that we have at position 1, when we have placed the camera, we have captured the image 1. we have captured the image 2 when the camera is located here. The image 3 has been captured when the camera is at different position. So the camera is moving from position 1 to 2 and position 3. So the same object, this is our object, the same object is represented here, you can see, as 2 dots. Okay, we are talking only about these 2 dots at this moment. Okay, so these 2 dots are pictured here in this photograph 1, in this image 2, the same 2 dots, and in this image 3, the same 2 dots. Now when we recreate the same condition as it existed at the time of photography, means we are making or recreating the same these optical rays. How we do it, tomorrow we will discuss. Now somehow you just focus here that we have recreated the same rays, light rays. Now when we have recreated the same light ray, now this light ray is coming from this point and going here. Okay, similarly for the same point, the light ray from the second image is going and it is intersecting here. From the third photograph, for the same point, the light ray has been started and it is going there. So all the 3 light rays of one point, they are going and intersecting at one particular point. Similarly, the light ray of the second point are intersecting at another point. So this is happening in a 3-dimensional space. So when 2 light rays intersect, the point is generated. Okay, so here this point is generated, here this point is generated. When all the such points are generated, it gives us a virtual 3D model, virtual 3D experience is generated. So based on this concept, the entire photogrammetry is based. So the same thing, the photogrammetry combines images that contain the same point on the ground from multiple vantage points to yield detailed 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional maps. As you can see, the same image was captured from different positions. When a 3D model was generated, when we zoom in the 3D model, this entire 3D structure can be seen clearly. This can be mapped also in 3-dimensional X, Y and Z. I hope the third dimension X, Y and Z, the third dimension is Z, height of the point. Okay. Now, you must have heard a lot about laser scanning. Photogrammetry is also providing you a dense surface model, and LiDAR also provides a dense surface model. So, what is the difference between photogrammetry and laser scanning? In photogrammetry, a quality high resolution full frame sensor camera can yield outputs with horizontal accuracy in the range of 1 centimeter and height accuracy in the range of 2 to 3 centimeter over hard surfaces. Okay, so this is the accuracy levels of photogrammetry that we achieve 1 centimeter in X and Y and 2 to 3 centimeter in Z. This is general cameras that we use. In case of LiDAR, X, Y and Z accuracy, all these 1 to 2 centimeter accuracy can be generated. Okay. Now, here you can see that in case of LiDAR, the accuracy is slightly better in height. But to get this extra 1 centimeter vertical accuracy, we have to pay a lot of money to get the laser scanning systems. So laser scanners, they are quite expensive, and also operationally they are difficult to operate. Whereas photogrammetry, using cameras, you can do the photogrammetric processing, generate dense surface model and achieve good accuracy out of photogrammetry. So the differences between photogrammetry and LiDAR, again they have been listed out here. You can see in my slides. After you complete the entire photogrammetric processing, these are the products that can be generated. The basic product is orthomosaic. Orthomosaic, as I have already told you, that in aerial photographs there are various errors. Now orthomosaic is free of these errors. The scale is uniform. There is no distortion and displacements. We can generate digital surface models. We can generate digital terrain models. Now what is digital elevation model? It is an array of point in an area that have x, y and z coordinates. So for each and every point, x, y and z coordinates are there. Ultimately, you can generate topographic maps out of it, which are detailed and accurate graphic representation of cultural and natural features of the ground. You can also generate the contours from photogrammetry. The same contours can be put here on the topographic map. So these are some products of of photogrammetry. When the photographs are captured, the camera the cameras are placed in such a manner so that there is around 60% overlap between one photograph and the second photograph. As you can see here, the camera was here, then the camera was here. So more than 60%, this overlap we call as forward overlap. Okay, so more than 60% overlap should be there between two images. If there is no overlap, the 3D model will not be generated. To generate 3D model, the overlap is necessary because we have to see this area from two different positions. So only this overlap area is seen from two different positions. So no overlap means no 3D model. 60% overlap means 60% stereo model. Okay, the third photograph again will have 60% overlap with this. So there would be some overlap between first photo and third photograph also. So that would help us in stitching these models together. Now the area generally is not a rectangular one. You have to go to take another flight so that you can cover the entire area. So between the first strip and within the second strip, you should have around 30% of overlap. Okay, so 60% forward overlap and 30% side overlap. These are the condition for photography. The aerial photographs we will be discussing regarding aerial photogrammetry, because satellite photogrammetry you will have detailed sessions. So aerial photographs can be of three different types: vertical photographs, low oblique photographs and high oblique photographs. The vertical photograph is the one in which the camera optical axis is 90 degree, nadir. Okay, so all the features appear nadir looking. Okay, so this is a vertical photograph. Low oblique photograph is the one in which the camera is optical axis is tilted, but the horizon is not seen. As you can see here in the third one, in the high oblique photograph, the horizon is also seen. Now what is an horizon? Horizon is the imaginary line at which the sky and the earth seems to meet. Okay, so these are three different types: vertical, low oblique and high oblique photographs. As you can see in the vertical photograph, there are no distortions, whereas when you go on increasing the tilt of the camera, the distortions go on increasing. So the same thing has been shown here also. The circle is a perfect circle in a vertical photograph. In oblique it becomes in an oblique photograph, it becomes at an oblong, an ellipse. Now, before going into the details of aerial photographs, there are certain terminology of aerial photographs that we should be clear about. The position at which the camera was at the time of photography is called as exposure station. At the back of the exposure station, at a distance of focal length from the lens, there is a negative. Okay, either negative or CCT array. If we are talking about negative, then for this negative, a positive is generated, and that while generating the positive, the paper is kept at exactly same distance, at focal length distance from the lens. So this is, at this side we have positive. If you look at negative and the ground, the geometry of the points and the tone of the point is reversed in case of negative. So whatever is dark, whatever is bright reflecting on the ground appears as dark in the negative, whereas in the positive the geometry as well as tone is true to the ground. If the camera optical axis, wherever it strikes the photograph, is called as principal point of the camera, of the photograph. The same principal point, if you if you extend it to the ground, this becomes as ground principal point. So this is the optical axis of the camera. Okay, the same thing, this is a frame type camera. You can also have CCD array, in which the digital when we capture digital photograph, at the back of the lens at the same focal length distance, you have this CCD array. In in the metric photographs from which you can make the measurements, certain marks are there so that we can locate the principal point. So these marks are called as fiducial marks. When we join opposite fiducial marks, this line is called as fiducial axis or fiducial line. Wherever two fiducial lines intersect, this is called as fiducial center, or we can also say it is principal point of the photograph. At one side of the photograph, some marginal information is also provided, which tells us at what date, at what time, what was the tilt angle at the time of photography. So all these details are given in the marginal information. Now, as I have already said, that photography is a central projection. Now, what does the central projection means? As you can see here, this is a map. In a map, all the features of the ground, they are projected 90 degree with rays which are 90 degree to the ground surface. Here you can see A, B, C, D, E. All these rays are at 90 degrees. So that is why capital A is projected as a small a, capital B is projected as a small b, and so on. So this is what we call as orthogonal projection. Whereas in case of aerial photograph, or in case of digital photograph, in case of any photograph, all the rays from the from all part of the ground, they are focusing on one point, that is the lens, and from here they are diverging and making the image on the image plane or on the negative. So this is what is central projection. So because of this central projection, we have varied scale throughout the photograph. Okay, so in the map the scale is uniform, but in aerial photograph, because of the central projection, we have varied scale. Also, because of the central projection, we encounter this relief displacement in the photographs. As you can see here, these are certain buildings, and these buildings have been pictured in a have been captured in a photograph. So only the central building, which is exactly at the center of the photograph, is correct, is photographed correctly, whereas all the other buildings are leaning outward. You can see here the top and the bottom and the side of the building is also visible. The buildings are leaning outward. So this is because of the height of the building, and this particular displacement is called as relief displacement. We will be talking about this relief displacement also. But before going there, we should discuss a bit about scale of the aerial photograph. So before a photograph can be used as a map supplement or substitute, it is necessary to know the scale of the photograph. As we already know, on the map, the scale is printed as representative fraction, as I have already said, 1 is to 50,000. So one measurement of the ground is equivalent to 50,000 measurements of the ground. One measurement of the map is equivalent to 50,000 measurement of the ground. So representative fraction is equal to map distance divided by ground distance. Similarly, we can also express the scale of photograph as representative fraction is equal to photo distance upon ground distance. To calculate the scale of the photograph, we have another formula, that is scale is equal to focal length divided by flying height. So we will see how we have got this formula. Now the scale of the map can be large scale map. In a large scale map, the small area is shown and all the features are clearly visible. Okay, you can see this is 1 is to 12,000 scale, or here we are saying large scale, compared to 1 is to 1,33,000 scale. Okay, so here the very large area is represented and all the finer details are not visible. So this is slightly confusing, large scale and small scale. In a large scale map, small area with finer details are there. In a small scale map, large area with less details are visible. Now, how to calculate the scale of the photograph? F divided by capital H. Now, suppose this is the picture of the photograph. So, this capital L is the exposure station. Area of the ground AB has been pictured as small a, small b on the photograph. Small f is the focal length, distance between exposure station and positive. Okay, exposure station is at a distance of capital H from the ground. So where capital H is flying height. This is the optical axis. Now how to do this? Now we can see we have to take two triangles here. Okay, in the triangle capital L, small a, small b, and capital L, capital A, capital B, these two triangles which are highlighted here. This angle is equal to this angle because two parallel lines are there and one line, straight line, is intersecting. So this angle is equal to this angle. Similarly, the opposite angle is equal to this angle and the top angle is common. Okay, so if all the three angles of the triangle, they are equal, so this makes the triangles as similar triangles. Okay, so this small pink triangle and the large blue triangle, these two triangles are similar triangle. So there is a property of similar triangle that the ratio of corresponding sides is equal. So what is corresponding side? Corresponding side means small ab, corresponding side is capital AB. So small ab upon capital AB will be equivalent to LA upon L capital A. Similarly, it will be equivalent to LO upon L capital O. Here LO is distance is equal to small f, whereas capital LO distance is capital L, capital P distance is capital H, that is flying height. So this, whereas small ab upon capital AB, this is the scale of the photograph. This is photo distance divided by map distance. So the derivation, step by step instructions are given here for the derivation. You can once again revisit this derivation. It is a very simple one, just by making these similar triangles. Okay, so now here what is the main issue? We are taking capital H as flying height above the ground. Now here we have taken that the ground is completely flat, but in reality the ground is not flat, the ground is variable. So there is ground some point here, some point here, some point here, so like this. So the capital H, that means flying height above the ground, is not a constant value here. So what we have to do, capital H we should take flying height above a datum so that it becomes constant, and height of individual point we have to take so that we can find out actual scale over a varied terrain, over a terrain which has varying relief. So the scale formula becomes as scale is equal to focal length f upon capital H minus small h. Now small h is height of individual point. Since height of all the points is different, that is why scale is different at different positions. So this was about scale. Then comes sources of distortions and displacement. On an accurate planimetric map, all the features on the ground surface are portrayed at their correct horizontal position. The observer thus has a truly vertical view of every detail shown, and spatial relationship among the features is accurate. Unfortunately, this standard cannot be met in aerial photograph because of various sources of distortions and displacement. So, the main sources of distortions or displacements can be optical or photographic deficiencies. The film and paper shrinkage may be there. There can be some error because of lens, because of filter, because of failure of film flattening mechanism, because of image motion, because the camera is moving while capturing the photograph, so because of image motion, because of atmospheric refraction of light rays, curvature of the earth, tilt or relief. So luckily all the other distortions that I have listed out, apart from tilt and relief, they can be easily modeled or easily known how much is the distortion. There is only the problem of relief and tilt displacement. So starting with relief displacement, the shift or displacement in the photographic position of an image caused by the relief of the object, only because of the height of the object, how the photograph or the planimetric position of the points is displaced. So amount of relief displacement is directly correlated with the height of the point. So more is the height of the point, more is the relief displacement. This displacement is inversely correlated with the flying altitude of the aircraft above datum and focal length use. So it also depends on focal length and flying height, capital H. More is the flying height, less is the relief displacement. So higher altitude photography will produce less relief displacement than lower altitude photography. So if you are having a drone photography, so it will have more relief displacement. If you have aerial photographs, less relief displacement. Still satellite photogrammetry, still less relief displacement. But as you go on increasing the flying height, the scale of the photograph become smaller and smaller. Smaller scale means the finer details are of the ground are not seen. Relief displacement is radial and away from the nadir. Okay, so we should consider all the objects above the datum. So it is radial and away from the nadir. So as you must be thinking that it is a very bad error, but this error, because of this relief displacement, we are able to calculate the height of the objects. We can measure the height of the objects. So this is how the relief displacement is seen in the photographs. As you can see here, this building, the top and the bottom of the building should have been photographed at one position only. Only the top should be visible. But here, because of the relief displacement, what is happening, the top has been shifted from its position so that we are able to see the side of the building also. It is appearing that the building is leaning away from the nadir. Nadir means the central point. Similarly, here also the relief displacement is less, but still it is observable. So if you look at the photograph, just at the nadir point, there will not be any relief displacement. Whatever is the height of object, relief displacement will be 0 at nadir. Why this is so? I will give you the formula so that you can it will be clear. As you go away from, radially away from the nadir, the relief displacement is maximum at the corner. At this position, the displacement is less. At this position, the displacement is maximum. Where the radial displacement is maximum, the relief displacement is maximum. Here you can see this is the maximum relief displacement. Now, in aerial photograph, the relief displacement, all the points are leaning away from the nadir. In the satellite imagery, there is only relief displacement in one direction. This is because of the because how the satellite images are captured. So in the satellite photogrammetry sessions, this will be dealt in detail. So here again you can see the relief displacement is observed in all the high-rise buildings. We will not go into the details of how to derive this formula. You should try to see how we can calculate the height of the feature by using relief displacement. Now, suppose this is the building for which the height we have to calculate. Okay, so radial distance from the nadir to the top of the building is taken as small r. Okay, from the bottom it is taken as r dash, let us say, and capital R minus r dash gives us delta r. Okay, so height of the building would be delta r, or in this image it is shown as a small d, relief displacement, divided by r, small r, that means radial distance of the top from the nadir, multiplied by flying height of the object, flying height of the aerial photograph. So now let us see, if the object is at nadir, that means object is here, so radial distance is 0, relief displacement is 0. Okay, you can calculate delta r from here. Delta r becomes small r into h upon capital R. Okay, so if small r is 0, that means the relief displacement is 0. If relief displacement is directly proportional to height of the object, more is the height, more is the relief displacement. Similarly, relief displacement is inversely proportional to flying height. More is flying height, less is relief displacement. Okay, so this is how relief displacement helps us in finding out height of the objects. There is another displacement, that is because of the tilt of the photograph. A photograph is considered tilted when the angle between the optical axis and the vertical is greater than 3 degree. So this is the plumb line or the vertical line. This is the optical axis. So if the angle, this is the angle of tilt, this angle between the plumb line and between the optical axis, this is called as angle of tilt. If the angle of tilt is more than 3 degree, then we call it as tilted photograph. Okay, tilt can be there can be different types of tilt. Tilt is angle between camera optical axis and vertical line. We also can have swing and azimuth. So tilt displacement, this is how a tilted photograph or oblique photograph will look like. Images on tilted photograph are displaced inward with respect to the position. on an equivalent vertical photograph. So inward displacements are considered positive, whereas outward displacement are considered negative. Okay. So this is the formula for tilt displacement. Generally, tilt displacement we don't consider in photogrammetry. Only if the tilt is more than 3 degree, we remove these photographs, because the formulas of vertical photographs will not be applicable on tilted photographs. Now, another very important concept is parallax, stereoscopic parallax. Now, what is stereoscopic parallax? Here you can see, if you have a picture or something in front of you, and you put your thumb or your finger here, see it by your left eye, see it by your right eye, do it at a faster pace. What you will see, that the finger is moving. Earlier it was obstructing this part, later on it is obstructing this part. So you feel that the finger is moving, whereas the finger or thumb is moving, whereas it is not moving. So apparent shift in the position of object due to shift in the position of observation is called as parallax. So you all can do this experiment just now also. You can extend one finger like this, close one eye, close other eye, do it at a faster pace. You will see that the finger is moving. You will feel that the finger is moving. If you do it slowly, you will not, it will not appear, you will not feel it. But if you do it at a faster rate, you will feel that the finger is moving. Whereas you are not moving the finger, only the position of observation has been changed from first eye, from left eye to right eye, and so on. So this is what is parallax. When we define it, so it is apparent shift in the position of object. So your finger is shifting, so shift in the position of finger, but this shift is not real, this is apparent. So apparent shift in the position of object. And why it is happening? Because of shift in the position of observation. So because of that, you are feeling that it is shifting. So same thing happens here also. In the second figure also, I have tried to show you the same thing. Now the same principle can be used. This is a very simple principle. Same principle of parallax can be used to find height of objects in stereo pair. Now how? Now instead of two position of eyes, you have two position of cameras. Okay. Now in the frame with respect to the frame of photograph. Now please listen here carefully. With respect to the frame of photograph, the position of the feature, of the same feature, is shifted. Okay, so the same point, let us see, let us say any feature, suppose this particular feature. Okay, here this has small x1 y1 coordinates in this particular photograph. In the for the same object in the second photograph, in the overlapping photograph, with respect to the frame of photograph of the second photograph, the coordinates, the photo coordinates are different. This shift in photo coordinates is what is parallax in aerial photographs, and this concept we will be using for calculation of height. How this parallax is visible in stereo pair when you overlap two photographs. One photograph I have put in red color, one photograph I have put in blue color. So you can see the same feature is shifted. And this is what is, all the features are shifted. And this is what is called as parallax. Here again, you can see this building is shifted. Okay, in first photograph, in the second photograph. Okay, so this shift is called as parallax. Now, how it can be used to find out height? Now, when you sit in a moving vehicle and you look out of the vehicle, what will you feel? What will you see? There are certain features which are closer to you, certain features which are far away from you. When you are moving, you feel that the objects outside the window, suppose you are sitting in a moving train and you are looking out of the window, okay, so what you will feel, that everything else is moving, okay, whereas all the trees, the houses outside, they are stable, only you are moving. So that this is what is parallax. Now again, you, if you observe carefully, the features that, or the objects that are closer to you, move at a faster rate. The features that are far off from you, they move at slower pace, or they move slowly. So now how we correlate it? Whatever features are closer to your eye, they show more movement is there, so more parallax. The far away feature from eye, less parallax, because they are moving slowly. Now instead of you sitting in a train, you consider yourself sitting in an aircraft and you look down on the ground. What features would be closer to the eye? Whatever features are elevated. High height features will exhibit more parallax, low height features will exhibit low parallax. So mountains will show more parallax, the streams will show less parallax. So here you can see parallax is directly related with the height of the objects. So by measuring parallax of different points, you can calculate directly height of individual points. As you can see here, for this particular tree, the parallax of the base was certain, the distance is certain, so these, they have been shifted, so you can calculate how much is the parallax and how much is the height of the tree. So this is a simple formula to calculate the height of the object from by measuring parallax. Height, where capital H is height of aircraft above the ground, capital P is absolute parallax at the base of object being measured, dP is differential parallax. Okay, so capital H multiplied by differential parallax divided by absolute parallax plus differential parallax will give you the height of the object. So for convenience, the photo base length of stereo pair is substituted for absolute stereoscopic parallax. So that all details we are not going into. So once you have generated the orthophotograph, you can generate contours like this. I am showing you one case study in which the orthophotograph was generated, on which the contours were generated. Individual buildings, the group of buildings, industrial sheds, road divider, electric pole, road island, playground, railway track, everything was clearly visible. It was extracted, and this all can give you a map like this. So using the orthophotograph, you can generate a similar map. Okay, so this is what what photogrammetry is being used for. So before, just I will I will give you 3 questions. I will discuss these questions here itself. So the first one is, choose the correct statement in respect to the aerial photograph. Do they have uniform scale? No, they don't have uniform scale. The geometry of object is distorted. They exhibit abstract representation of ground? No, the maps are representing. Different symbols and colors are used? No, this is also for map. So the second option, that is the geometry of object, is distorted because of relief and tilt displacement. Now the second question, what is the principal point? Now what is the principal point? Point of position of marking of the corner of edge of photograph? No. Point of the position of camera at time of exposure? No. Again, this is oh sorry I think this answer is wrong. The principal point is position of the exposure station on the photograph, point of position of, not of camera, of at the in the photograph, or where the optical axis intersects the photograph. So I'm sorry for this particular second question, all the options are wrong. The third one is regarding relief displacement, select the false statement. It depends on height of point above datum. Yes. It depends on flying height. Yes. It depends on viewing position. No. It doesn't depend on viewing position. It is not visible in, it depends on viewing position, and it is visible in truly vertical photograph. So the fourth option is wrong. It is visible in truly vertical photographs. Only at the nadir point the relief displacement is not visible. In all the other points, even in truly vertical photograph, the relief displacement is visible. So thank you so much for paying attention.